Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Susie. I agree with Rachel's comments. It's somewhat of a hard talk to follow, but thank you for your honest and open views on sharing your story. So to take us in a slightly different sort of place, I wanted to talk about current research and progress towards life-changing treatments. To take Susie's point, I'm going to sit my first slide because we've heard a lot today about statistics and we all know the statistics. But just to mention that we've talked a lot about health and social care costs and the impact that dementia has on social care. And actually the health and social care costs are more than cancer, and they are more than chronic heart disease. But they're actually more than both of those combined. And we need to make sure that message really does hit home to government and policymakers. George challenged us this morning in terms of what progress have we seen and what progress has been made. So I wanted to touch on a couple of initiatives that have been set up. Now, I appreciate that's not the impact of those initiatives yet because they've just been set up and are somewhat in progress and we haven't seen the outputs from them. But actually having the government's 2020 challenge on dementia has initiated and inspired a lot of progress in this area. So if we look at the bottom left, since we had the G8 Dementia Summit back in December 2013, we've seen on the international stage, we heard earlier about the WHO Action Plan on Dementia, which is on the right-hand side. We had the WHO Ministerial Conference back in 2015. We've also had a number of UK initiatives and seeing real investment in how we can place the UK at the centre of dementia research. So we've had things such as the Dementia Platforms UK. How can we bring together data and insights we have from all these brilliant cohorts of people like you in the room who've been able to share data and we've understand more about this disease? How can we pull that together so we can really get those insights and learn much more quickly? From Alzheimer's Research UK's point of view, we've also been part of the Dementia Discovery Fund. So how can we make sure we can bring together partners so that there's now 7 different pharma partners involved, as well as the government and Alzheimer's Research UK, to say how can we stimulate further investment in dementia research? We often compare the numbers to cancer, and I'll come on to that in a minute, but how can we do more to make sure we get more investment in this area and make sure that then we see those treatments coming through the pipeline and, importantly, getting to patients? So what progress have we seen? So actually the UK, based on analysis we did comparing 2008 to 9 to 2014-15, has the fastest growing dementia research landscape. Now I think having the challenge on dementia has been part of that, creating that environment that David Nuttall spoke about this morning to make sure that research can progress and we can get more insights. So the number of outputs from research has almost doubled in that time. But in 2008-9, there was 1 dementia researcher to every 6 cancer researchers. If you think about the number of times that you need to try something in a petri dish in a lab and see if it might work, if you've got 6 times more people working on it, the chances of success are undoubtedly higher. We have seen progress, but it's still 1 to 4. So we need to ensure that that environment gets sustained to 2020 and beyond so we can get more researchers asking more questions so that we will see the breakthroughs we need to develop treatments in this area. So where do we think the dementia research landscape is now? We've spoken a lot today about public awareness. So there has been increased political focus on dementia, and that's helping to drive some public awareness and understanding. But we need to do much more, and we know we need to do much more on this. From polling we've done, we've found that less than 1 in 4 people knows that dementia is even caused by brain disease. They just assume it's a kind of natural part of ageing. How do we start to change this environment and say that actually people deserve the care and support they need, that we can get better treatments if people just assume it's a natural part of ageing and there's nothing we can do? We know current treatments aren't good enough. We don't have anything that will slow or stop the progression of the disease. And they only currently work in terms of alleviating the cognitive symptoms and often for a short period of time. When you can compare that to the other sort of top 10 causes of death, it's the only one where we don't have anything to stop or slow progression. We shouldn't accept that, and we need to make sure that we keep seeing that investment in research so it pulls through and we do have something when someone is given a diagnosis, there are more treatments to offer, and you continue to have a really, really good quality of life. In terms of understanding the causes of dementia, we still don't understand enough about why some neurons die and others don't. And we need to understand more about that basic biology to see how that can then be pulled through to create better treatments. Jeremy mentioned this morning about the UK Dementia Research Institute, so Alzheimer's Research UK, along with Alzheimer's Society and the Medical Research Council, are putting now over 290 million into that basic research to say, how can we answer some of those basic questions and improve that knowledge that will then pull through to create better treatments. The poor disease understanding does have challenges when it comes to clinical trials and has somewhat sort of hampered drug development to date. There are a number of promising agents in late stages of clinical trial, and obviously we all have our fingers crossed that they will pull through and we will see effective treatments. We've spoken this morning quite a lot about the challenges of getting diagnosis, people talking about years to get that diagnosis, and I think it's key that we also have better diagnostics so that then we can identify people much more quickly. How in other disease areas can you almost give a blood test and know the result and the specific mechanism that might have gone wrong in a cell, and yet we might be waiting numerous years for people in our disease area to get that confirmation. So why is it particularly challenging in dementia? So just to reflect on it very quickly, so we start on the left-hand side from those discoveries in a Petri dish in a lab through to being able to go into the clinic and get treatments. Why is it taking so long for more to come through? So there's a number of points, and I'll just reflect on them briefly. So we've talked about the limited disease understanding. We know that trials also take longer, and often because of that are more expensive in this area. But we all know from our own experiences, sometimes the changes when people get dementia, there can be subtle changes initially that change over time, and it's harder to sort of unpick, as it were, that these changes are happening because there isn't that kind of step change. And when you're looking at that in a trial population, and also as we're looking to treat early in the disease, there's very subtle changes, so you need to track it for a much longer period of time. But we need to get better tools to do better clinical research so that we can move it forwards, so that we can say, and not be in a position to say we haven't had any new drugs in 15 years for what is the biggest killer in the UK. In terms of Alzheimer's Research UK, our work focuses across that lifespan from basic research, pulling all the way through to clinical development. So I mentioned just now about the UK Dementia Research Institute and working in collaboration with the Medical Research Council and Alzheimer's Society. How can we better understand what's going wrong in cells and you know, why are people getting dementia? We're also working with the Dementia Consortium is enabling pharma to invest earlier through a risk-sharing scheme. We knew that when we started to look at what else we could do as Alzheimer's Research UK in this area, pharma weren't investing early because it was almost too risky. But we need that early stage drug discovery to really look at what are some of those new targets, how else might we be able to develop better treatments in this area. And to your point this morning, George, when we started this, we had 2 pharma companies on board in 2013. We now have over 6, and hopefully 7 soon, joining the Dementia Consortium. So we're attracting that further investment, which is so needed in this area. And progress is being made. If you look at clinical trials and research by Joint Dementia Research about a year ago, we have double number of targets now in phase 3 than we had, or in clinical development than we had 3 years ago. We have a number of promising things in phase 3 now, which leave us with a key question. Is the healthcare system ready? So we've spoken a lot about today about the challenges now in terms of being able to access care, being able to navigate the system. If we have a new treatment available, we are really keen that we plan ahead and look ahead now to make sure that as soon as those new treatments are available, as soon as we have effective treatments to offer people, they can get to them as quickly as possible. So what might some of those challenges be? So there's 4 areas that we've looked at through Alzheimer's Research UK for our Treatments for Tomorrow report. So we've touched on the developmental challenges, but there's also the healthcare system challenges, which I'll come on to in a moment. Affordability challenges, the cost of a first-in-class disease-modifying treatment. How will that be valued by NICE? Will people be able to access it on the NHS? And how do we make sure that that new innovation gets adopted quickly? People don't want to wait any longer. We've already waited 15 years. So last month, we published a report called Thinking Differently, looking at a number of different treatment scenarios, being informed by a group of leading clinicians, looking, if we look at treatments that may come through in the pipeline, what might be the impact of them on the healthcare system? So a number of treatments, and I won't go into details because of time, but just to say from the left to right, treatments that would be available from the mild stage of dementia through to, if they're available, from prodromal to mild or prodromal to severe stages across there, you can see they'd have a huge impact in terms of cost, from 362 million to 2.8 billion annual cost a year, due to the number of people and the size and scale of dementia. We've also spoken a lot today about health and social care and the need to link up those two areas. But when we look at the potential savings of a new treatment, we see that as we go to treat earlier in the disease, we do start to see savings to the healthcare system, but the majority of these get recognised in social care. How do we make sure when some of those budgets are looked at in silos that the true value of a treatment to an individual really does get seen? How do we have that greater link up in terms of showing the benefits of not just healthcare, but health and social care? We've also spoken a lot today about diagnosis and the delays of getting a diagnosis. But also from our research, and we see from current evidence from the recent clinical trials and those that haven't met their endpoints, is the benefits of treating earlier. If we can diagnose and treat earlier, then we can improve quality of life by people being able to stay longer in the earlier stages of this disease. So I think there's a need now in terms of timely diagnosis, that people are getting that diagnosis as soon as possible. And then for future treatments, when we have them, people can be diagnosed as early as possible so they get the full benefit from future treatments. It's an overview for me, but happy to take questions at the end. Thank you.